Welcome to today's episode in Powerhouse, Mexico, how to live and invest in Mexico. Guys, it is a big episode today because I have the one and only Nancy Soberanis, who is going to be talking to us about the legal part. She is a lawyer and she is here to clear up all the questions that you guys sent in regarding buying in Mexico and all the legalities in Mexico. But first, let me introduce my guest. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Hello, Nicole. It's a pleasure to be here. It was also a pleasure to see you in the last week in the meeting of Playa del Carmen at AMPI. We really miss you,
Thank
and
you.
I'm so excited to have this collaboration with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was president of AMPI in 2025 for the Association of Realtors, and I passed the baton to our new president, Nico Morini, who's going to be the new
Yes.
president of Playa del Carmen. Well, Nancy has been around. You've been around for a while, and you are one of the people who's always supported AMPI, the association.
Definitely.
And the one thing that I love about working with you is your ethics,
Thank
your
you.
transparency, and really, really doing things the correct way, whether it's pro or against what they might want, it's always the truth.
Sure.
That's what's important. So tell me a little bit about you, about how long you've been working, about, being in Playa del Carmen, but also I know that you work in all of Mexico. You're not just going to be in Playa del Carmen.
Correct. Well, it's also important to say that one of the reasons I was so excited to come to Merida to visit you is that I actually graduate myself here from the law school.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's always a good thing to come back here because I was living in Merida for 8 years.
do you miss it?
I did,
Yeah.
I do, I
Has
do.
the piece of your heart?
Yes, of course. I mean, living in Merida, it's a wonderful thing. However, since I born in Quintana Roo, that's why I came back because family situations and right? And yes, I mean, as you're saying, yes, we always try to keep on our ethics because no matter what, truth always comes up. So I really like to be honest and straight from the beginning.
Yeah. How long have you been practicing law?
16 years now. Yes,
Wow.
yes. It's 16 years since I founded my law firm.
Which is called?
IUS,
IUS.
Riviera Consulting, right?
Mhm.
And before that, I was working for a notary in Quintana Roo for 5 years. And before that, when I used to live here in Merida, I used to work also with a notary, but also for a Scotiabank Trust Department.
Nice.
So that's when I started to get involved on these foreign investments, legalities, and all of that.
How exciting. So
Yeah.
the big question everybody's always asking, can a foreigner buy property in Mexico? Yes or no? Give us the answer.
Yeah, definitely yes. The trust that is designed for this type of investment is very, very secure. I've been creating trust, amending trust, and transferring trust rights for the last 20 years. And I have never heard about a foreign that was not able to do so because there was a lack of legalities or understandings or nothing like that. I mean, obviously, every trust have their own rules,
Yeah.
but it's always in the protection of the investor.
Yeah. How much does it cost right now to get a trust?
Well, it's different between one bank and another, but let's say from 3,000 to $3,500,000. Yeah, right.
How long does a trust last?
Well, that's an interesting question because right now, since 20 years or so, the trust on the restricted zone, because let's remember that we are located on an area that is called the restricted zone because we are so near to the coast or so near to the broad. So that's the restricted zone. And it's now for 50 years. However, at the beginning, like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, the trust, for some reasons, the foreign affairs used to create the trust and authorize the trust for 20 years or maybe 10 years. So I have had also the opportunity, which is also exciting for me,
The trust
to renew it. Yes, yes. And sometimes on those years when it's 20 years or 30 years ago, there were some banks that did not exist anymore. and that they transfer their rights to another bank, which is also a very good point to clarify to the investors that even though the bank that you create the trust with goes out of business, by law in Mexico, the bank will have to transfer those clients to another authorized bank. So you will never be like in the limbo, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. So now let's talk about the steps that a person has to take. I'm ready to move to Mexico. I'm buying my house, but wait, I'm scared. I'm scared. Is it going to be, am I safe? What are some of the things that you see people being scared of? And then now explain to us the real truth of the processes and procedures of buying something in Mexico.
That's I love to speak about this subject. I would say I would give two main advice to these persons interested in invest here. The first one will be definitely to work with specialized in real estate,
Yeah,
licensed,
license
with a licensed professional.
Such as
Please,
myself, of course.
of course, that's why please do not try if there's a realtor that is promising things that sounds wonderful and very, yes, too good to be true. I mean, the professionals are realistic and have a responsibility and have make an analysis of the market, so they know what, I mean,
Very important.
that's very important. And also, another good step for this is to have a legal advisor on your side.
Yeah.
And when I say on your side, is that most of times when foreigners come and buy property, maybe the developer suggests you to a lawyer, maybe even the realtor suggests you to a lawyer. But it's also important that you find out that you take enough time to compare and to choose the right legal advisor, a legal advisor that makes you feel right, that explains you the process, that guides you through the process, that respond the calls, right?
Very important too. Sometimes they don't tell them that they have the option. As a buyer, you get to choose who you want to work with. You are not obligated to work with the notary of the developer or the notary of the person selling the house. You get to choose what lawyer you're going to work with. So, like Nancy said, take your time and really check out your options and make the correct questions and who you feel safe with.
Right. Yeah, of course, because once you choose the realtor, the right one, and the legal advisor, the right one, they will protect your interest and they will walk with you the entire process and you will feel safe and you will be safe, right?
Yeah.
And well, after that, once you have choose these very important pieces, then you can start looking into properties that fits to your budget, fits to your interest, and everything will start with an offer, right? Well, let's say the offer is just a form. It's a piece of paper that it is legal, it is binding. However, between the form and the promissory note, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because the offer is specify who's selling, who's buying, what's the price, the installments, closing date, and whatever. But it doesn't specify that the owner is showing title. What happens if any one of the parties breach on the contract? What's the penalty? What's the documents that they have to show up? What are your chances if the transaction doesn't go through?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's important. I would say then that it should be three main points or three special moments. First, the offer. So you assure that price. The second will be the promissory note that specify all the terms and conditions of that transaction. And the final one, which is when you appear before notary, and then now the title, you sign the title, and you could consider that from the moment you sign before notary and you receive the keys, you are the real owner of that property.
I want to ask you a question because I've seen this happen and I want to know your legal opinion. Sometimes the title is not ready. But they go, well, if you pay everything now, I'll give you the keys and you can move in now. This happens, guys. Look at her face. This happens more than you can imagine. So the paperwork's not ready. That might take another 3-4 weeks. But the building is there, or the apartment or the house is there. So here, go ahead and pay it off and I'll give you the keys. Pros and cons into doing something like that, Nancy.
Well, as I was saying before, if you are working with a licensed real estate agent, he will know what kind of developer is the developer you are buying from. If this developer have had other projects, what is the quality of this developer doing other projects, right? How are his processes of fulfilling all the transaction. But I mean, there's always an exception because I do know several developers in the area that are very responsible. I'm not going to make a general comment,
Yeah, that's good.
but I think that it's very important to be conscious that the title is the reason why you are putting this money in this country, right? So that is the main thing. It doesn't matter if you are living in the house. It doesn't matter if you have the keys of the house. The most important thing is to have the title. So I've seen in these years, well, between the Mérida, Campeche, Quintana Roo, that sometimes the marketing used by the developer sometimes is kind of aggressive, no? And the team from the developers, they want the deal to close, right?
Yeah.
So they sometimes offer discounts as then if you have a discount, you could be open to give more as a down payment and all
so
of
it's
that, right?
incentive. So what we see a lot is, for example, instead of paying 30% down, which is the minimum, why don't you go ahead and pay 50% down and I'll give you 3% discount, or pay 90% down, I'll give you a 7 to 10% discount. But here's the kicker. Sometimes they want you to pay 100% down and they offer this huge discount.
Yeah.
Do not do it.
No, please. No, no,
Please
no.
don't do it.
No, no, no. I actually in Mexico, at least here in Yucatan and Quintana Roo, there's not a roof or a ceiling on the percentage of down payment that a buyer should pay, right?
Yeah.
I really would like to see this somewhere. Unfortunately, right now it depends on us, the lawyers, and you as a realtor, to take care of your client, to let them know until what amount is acceptable to present as a down payment, right?
Yeah.
And if perhaps the developer it's a responsible developer, you might pay 30% down payment, which I consider that is normal.
Yeah.
And then make a condition for the further payments as the construction goes and the development start, moving along.
Yeah, and that's very common. They usually ask for a certain percentage down. You pay throughout the construction. Then
Yeah.
at the end, you pay the remaining amount, which is usually a 30% left at the end.
Yes.
But here's another question that's very important. I've noticed a lot of times clients come and say, Nicole, I'm going to buy something pre construction, but I want to put it in escrow.
Mhm.
Escrow works very different in Mexico. So I'd love for Nancy to explain to us how it works and how it does not work, because for pre construction, we don't put it in escrow. So tell us a little bit more about when it does work and when it doesn't, and what is escrow in Mexico, because it's not the same as the US.
Correct, correct. Yes, in the U.S. and Canada, in my experience, I've noticed that escrow agents, first of all, they are commonly a licensed realtor in the U.S. So the banks open a special bank account as escrow account, right? And the laws and regulations of U.S. and Canada those stipulates the responsibility of an escrow agent, and also those type of escrow accounts have an insurance. Okay, here in Mexico, the escrow does not exist as a specific for the real estate transaction, but there is a legal figure that exists, call it in Spanish contrato de depósito, which complies
It's like a
with.
deposit contract.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's basically that you put some money in safe in on a third party account,
Mhm.
and that third party account will know what are the conditions that the seller have to meet, so he send the money. But if you expect that this is a licensed escrow agent or that you have insurance on this bank account, that is not regulated in Mexico, so that not exist. So most of the times it goes by the reputation. You need to be aware of who's the legal office handling those funds, no?
Yeah. What is the price of an escrow right now? Is it a percentage or is there a set price?
It's a set price. Lately, I heard the minimum fees. I mean, in our city, being 350 or 450 for the first, let's say, 250 or $300,000,
Okay.
and it could go up to 1,000 or 1,500 if we are talking about a $2 million bank account transaction. Sorry,
And in Mexico, who would we consider the person to pay the escrow, the buyer or the seller?
the buyer.
The buyer. Very important because
Yeah,
sometimes they
the
get
buyer. The buyer.
So we have that. We have our offer letter. What is next? Is it the promise to purchase contract?
Yes, after you sign the offer letter, it's important because when you sign the offer letter, you give like a down payment, right, of $5,000. That's common, right?
Yes, to reserve the unit.
Right. And then between the time you sign the offer and the time you sign the promissory note, there should be like a week or 10 days or so. That's when your lawyer will go and make a due diligence of the property, right? To bring you answers about who's the developer, is he a Mexican company, who are the legal representatives, the land is free of liens, the taxes are paid, does he have a construction license, does he not? I mean, what is the density of the project? I mean, all these things. So when you are sitting there signing the contract, you have a more clear idea of what is the type of business you are going to. And don't get me wrong, what I say to my clients is every real estate transaction have a percentage of risk. There's no real estate transaction that is 100% safe. We are humans, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you work with experienced people that you can trust, and they watch for your interest, you will be way much better protected.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to let people know is also sometimes the contracts, especially with places that have a lot of expats coming in, they have it in English and Spanish, but only the Spanish one is the one that counts.
Yes, this is a courtesy translation that commonly we also we use that all the time. You will see the Spanish and English, but those contracts will always have a clause at the end, a paragraph that says that for the interpretation of this contract, the Spanish version will prevail.
Now, a lot of people can't always travel. I'm buying a new property in Mexico, but I live in New York, or I live in Canada, or I live in France. I can't travel to sign. Tell us, Nancy, about what you do to help the clients and how you can help them from afar the day of signature.
That's a very good question, Nicole. Well, this promissory agreement we are talking about, this is a private agreement, right? And lately, we have been implementing the use of special systems that verifies your identity, that verifies your ID. I mean,
Your fingerprint, ID.
yes, and so it shows where you were exactly when you sign the contract, right?
Oh.
So nobody can sign it. I mean, and in this point, what I really want is to make sure that the developer is signing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not so worried about my client,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
worried about the developer, and because I heard that DocuSign have a version for that, but they do not provide the picture and the ID support.
But it is okay to sign in DocuSign for a promise to purchase contract.
Yeah, I mean, it is because if you have a problem and you sign a contract by DocuSign, I mean, you cannot deny that that contract was signed, right?
Yeah.
And but also when we jump into formalize before the notary, that's another story.
That's another story. That's when you're going to close on the property. It's not pre-construction. It's an actual house, let's say, or apartment that's ready to go.
Right.
And you're going to the notary. Tell us about that transaction.
Yes, in the for the specific answer to the example you bring up, if the client cannot make it, I mean, we prepare closings like 2 or 3 months ahead, right?
Yeah.
So we give enough space to the client to make travel plans. But if in the case, even though they cannot make it because an emergency or family situation, whatever, we locate where is the client and what is the nearest Secretary of States in the case of United States.
Mhm.
And in the case of Canada, we we need to identify where is the nearest Mexican consulate.
Yeah.
So if you live in Kansas or you live in Quebec or you live in New York, then we can from I mean taking the starting point from where you are, we can tell you where to go, and we will send you a proxy form, and they will send it to us, and we will execute the title for them.
Now, to make it much easier, let's say I already know I'm not going to come in 3 months. Can I give you the power of attorney to sign on my behalf?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you are here in Mexico because you came to sign your contract, of course. I mean, meanwhile you're here, we can take you to the notary and you leave a specific, because this is also important to tell the clients. There's a specific power of attorney with the purpose of closing the property, okay? Do not sign any other powers of attorney for other things. Just make it a special power, a very restricted power of attorney.
Very good.
Okay.
So tell us, Nancy, about those clauses and contracts that sometimes are that you've noticed that a lot of clients don't understand. And with all the different contracts that there's some clauses that are okay, but there are some that go, wait, what does this mean? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, one of the principles we have in our office, and what I was always saying to my colleagues, is that when you read a contract, don't read what is written, read what is not, right? So we always confirm that first thing, that the fines in case of breaching of the contract are the same for the buyer and the same for the seller. Because sometimes I have found out that the only one that can be penalized is the buyer. I say, come on, no?
Yeah.
So I always ask, this is the first thing we request the seller to include on their contracts. And then after that, there are very important clauses. For example, who's going to take care of sending the documents in order for the buyer to have the trust done, and a deadline date, because I would say that the penalty and the deadline date to close the property are the most important elements to check on a contract. Because I've read a couple of contracts say the closing will be 10 or 15 days or 30 days after the developer is saying the client that he's ready. Please no.
No, don't go for that.
No.
Red flag. We want specific dates.
This is a red flag, because and what I'm saying to developers, you know what? I'm not looking to tie you up. I'm not looking to put pressure on you. Just give me a date. Even if you think it's January the 30th, I'm okay with March the 30th, but put a date there, no?
Yeah.
So this is a very important, I would say that is the second important thing. And I also think that there's a third element that is very important nowadays, because all these legalities that we need to fulfill with, is the anti-money laundering law, right?
Yeah.
Here in Mexico, we have an anti-money laundering law, well, also in the States. And now there are 37 countries in this international bureau that watch over the laundry money law. And because the notary is one of the principal agents to watch out over the fulfillment of the anti-money laundering law. So the notary needs to make sure that you are the one that pay for the property, and not your friend or your cousin or your grandmother, no?
Yeah.
And we also try to watch out. And there's an important amendment that was what made to this anti-money laundering law last year, which also have include regulations for developers,
Good.
which before they were not inside of it as specific as they are now. No?
Yeah.
So now I think all these efforts is to protect the investors,
Yeah.
right, and to make to provide like a more safe environment to invest, right?
And I think this is very important because sometimes people come to Mexico and they think that there's no law, there's no things that there is it safe for me to invest in Mexico. Well, today we have learned that yes, it is safe to invest in Mexico, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to know who you're working with. Lawyers are important. Having a good realtor is important. And before I finish out, the podcast is called Powerhouse Mexico.
Okay.
I'm going to make you a question. Feel free to take your time to answer.
Okay.
What is power for you?
Good question. Power for me is do what I like to do, be with the persons that I want to be, and doing what I do. I mean, be able to have that opportunity, it's is the best of the world.
Thank you so much for coming to see us here at Powerhouse Mexico. And if you guys want more information and want to contact Nancy, right below, and we will make sure to get you all her information. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.